everyone. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very, very special guest here for the show today. Could you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
Hi, everybody. My name is Marysol James, and I am sitting in England right now. It's about it's 5:30 in the afternoon here. So good morning to you guys, I suppose. And I'm a romance writer. I've written 30 books. My 31st book will be for sale on Monday.
Great. Okay. Now lead me into your journey talking about your past, ending up to your present, and then I will pick around for information because we all know what you want to highlight. Yes.
How far back did you want me to go? Sort of when my interest in writing started? Okay.
You can go back to
Um,
that point.
All right. Well, I was born in Canada and I was raised in a really small town, close family, the oldest of three kids. And I always wanted to be a writer. And when I was 9 years old, I was diagnosed with cancer. And part of what helped me sort of get through it was I wrote the whole time. I lived in the hospital for 3 years. I had surgery, chemo, radiation, and I had a wonderful opportunity to write. So that's what I did. But then when I left the hospital, I just realized that if I didn't have an agent, then probably nothing much was going to come of it. So I got sort of distracted, ended up doing pre-law and then getting a master's in international relations and business. Yes. And then I ended up traveling the world working for different businesses as a manager. So that was kind of my career trajectory. And I wasn't totally happy with it, but it was okay. It was fine. And then when I ended up in Warsaw, Poland, working for a company based in France, I had a really high level management position. And I got cancer a second time at that point, and I was immediately fired by the company. A beautiful severance package, 2 years, but still, I was out. And I just sort of I had nothing to do, and I was lying around having chemo and really ill. And a couple of friends of mine suggested that I write a romance novel. And it was a joke, kind of like, it'll take my mind off things. It's really light. It's not the kind of writing I've done that was really academic or business like. And it was the exact opposite of anything I'd ever done before. So I said, fine. And my two friends and I laughed the whole way through it. And I wrote it in 2 weeks. And then I put it on Amazon and I forgot about it. And about 3 months later, it became a best-selling beach novel that summer. And thus, a new career was born. I've been a romance writer ever since, and that's how I ended up in romance writing. And it was one of those times in your life where you're going down a certain path and everything seems so obvious, and you're even doing something really well, and then you just get thrown off your path. Life just puts a whole big roadblock up, and you end up someplace you never imagined or planned or was prepared for or even educated for. And yet, it ends up being the best thing that ever happened to you in a way. I've never been happier than being a full time romance writer.
Okay. Before we go into the brilliant retrospect of your writing, let's talk about your cancer. If you don't mind me asking, the first time around when I believe you were 9 years old, what type of cancer did you have? And tell me how, like you spent the first round 3 years in the
Hospital.
hospital, or was it the second round?
First round, I lived in hospital between the ages of 9 and 12 back in Canada.
Did you go to a good hospital that's like a cancer research center?
I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which at that time, because it was 1981.
Uh-huh.
And no, it wasn't. It was 19. Yeah, it was 1981. So back then, Hodgkin's lymphoma, at that time it was called Hodgkin's disease, was, in terms of demographic, it was 30 to sort of 50-year-old men, white men predominantly. And so that was the group that was being diagnosed with Hodgkin's. So a 9-year-old girl to get it was just, they had no idea what they were dealing with. I was only the second case in North America at that time. Now Hodgkin's is across the board, it's everywhere. But at that time, it was very unusual. So I ended up in the hospital in Toronto called Sick Kids Hospital with an amazing oncology hematology floor. It was the ninth floor. I got an amazing doctor because I was such a weird case. They were like, well, we don't know what to do with her. So they were throwing everything at me. But the thing is, all the treatments they had were for middle aged men, and I was 9. So they were trying to figure out how much to give me, what dosages, how often, because my body isn't a 40-year-old man's body. It was a 9-year-old girl's body. So it was really quite experimental, which is why it took so long to figure out sort of the strategy to approach with me. So now Hodgkin's is a very well known, unfortunately, child's disease. But back then, it really was not, which is why I ended up living in the hospital and having so many treatments because everything was just, well, we'll throw it at the wall and see what sticks. Maybe we'll get lucky. And in the end, I went into remission and I was cured.
Wow, that is amazing that you were cured. And so, when you were cured, like they didn't find out an ounce of cancer. Did you ever give back or start a research center specifically to get more money to fund for this Hodgkinson disease?
Hodgkin's, yeah.
Hodgkin,
Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Hodgkin's.
Um, no, what I did was I volunteered all through middle school and high school at cancer centers. I did a lot of work with patients. I did something like sort of a thing where as soon as I got my driver's license, I would go to people's homes and take them to the hospital for their treatment, for their chemo or whatever. I would, if a family member had somebody in the hospital who was dealing with cancer and didn't have a way to get there, I would go pick them up and take them to visit their family member or their significant other. So I just gave a lot of time. I mean, and I thought that was the best thing to do because the one thing I really remember about being in the hospital was I was alone so much because my father was working. My mother had 2 other children at home, and she didn't have a car to get to me. There was one family car. The town I lived in, a small town, was really far away from Toronto, so there was no way for people to get to me. My friends, I mean, I was 9, my friends were all in school and obviously couldn't come anyway. So I spent a lot of time alone. So, what I decided to do as soon as I was healthy and able, I wanted to make sure that people in the hospital dealing with this disease didn't get left alone for too long, if at all possible. So, that's really how I decided to give back when I was able to.
So basically, you were like a candy striper, somebody that was in a nursing position that did stuff for people. That's
No,
amazing.
no, it wasn't. It was nothing to do with the hospital. It was with organizations outside the hospital. So volunteer organizations outside the hospital. So yeah.
That's still cool. That's still
Oh,
cool. That's
thank
like,
you.
a candy striper without being a candy striper. You did things for people that some people don't like doing for people, to be quite honest. And
Yeah.
then when you found out again was it Hutchins lymphoma again that you had, or did you catch another cancer?
No, the second time around, it was breast cancer the second
Oh
time.
my God.
Yeah, and I was married with 2 children at that point. So it was terrifying because all I could think about was what happens if I don't survive it a second time. I'm leaving 2 little boys behind with no mother. So it was utterly terrifying for a whole different reason the second time.
It had to be because I remember I had a scare. You know, we have to talk about this for all the women out there. I had a
Mm.
scare, and they put your breast on this like plate, and they squeeze it really tight to see
Yeah.
exactly what is in
It
there.
it flattens it. You look down and it's clear because it's the X-ray and it's all clear and it's literally flattened and you're thinking, how does it go so like it's so painful. I know what you
Yes.
mean. Yeah.
And I found out I didn't, but my mother ended up having colon cancer. So I
Oh
understand.
no.
I was the only one taking care of her, and she was in her fourth stage. So they took half the colon out. Not half,
Oh
but
no.
probably like 40%. And what happened was, after they took out the 40%, it spread it. It spread it all over her body, and she ended up passing away. So I
I'm
get what
so
you're saying.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah, you are a strong woman. You here for a reason. So now let's talk about the reason why God wants you here, which is your romantic books. The
Yeah, I
first,
think so.
the I, yeah, the first time you wrote a book, you were how old again?
The first time I wrote a book, a romance novel,
Yes.
it would have been about 10 years ago now. So I would have been 42.
Okay, so tell me an excerpt from that book and why it was important and touched your heart. What was the book about? And then answer those.
Oh, well. Well, like I said, it was a bit of a joke. It was just something to make me feel better and take my mind off things. And my two friends, Angie and Ruby, said, "We'll just write a romance, just write something frothy and fun." And I had never even read a romance novel by that point in my life. So I didn't even know what to do. So I decided to write a sexy cowboy romance, and I don't know why. Don't ask me why. I just was like, oh, I'll do that. So I set it in Denver, Colorado. Although I'm Canadian, I set it in Denver, and I just had this idea where like this city girl from New York City inherits this ranch in Denver from a father who abandoned her when she was a baby. And so she shows up at this ranch full of sexy cowboys and she hates everybody and everybody hates her. And all she wants to do is sell this godforsaken place and get her money and go back to her life in New York City. But of course, she falls in love with the mountains. She falls in love with the staff. She falls in love with like the life, the pace. It's a whole different way of living. And of course, in the end, she falls in love with the sexy cowboy, Jake. And that was the story. That was it. Like, that's it in a nutshell. And I had zero expectations of it doing anything. And so when I put it on Amazon, my friends kind of pushed me. They're like, just do it, do it, do it. What's it going to hurt? I'm like, fine. And next thing I knew, money was showing up in my bank account. And I was like, what is happening? There's like thousands of dollars was showing up in my bank account. And I'm thinking, what is happening? Like, at first I
Yeah.
thought it was the company that had fired me. I thought they had given me more for some reason. And I went and looked and it was all coming from Amazon. So then I went to the Amazon, when you self-publish on Amazon, there's analytics and you can see sort of how many of your books have been purchased, who, like where, who's buying your books in what countries. And it was like I had sold thousands and thousands and thousands of books in the United States. And I was thinking, how did they find me? Because I had done no promotion, I had done nothing. And then I told my friends, I said, and they said, well, you have to start a Facebook page because people are going to be looking for you now. They're going to be, I said, okay. So I started a Facebook page. And sure enough, suddenly people started finding me there. And then they were all saying, where's the next book? Where's the next book? What happens next on the ranch? And I'm thinking, there is no next book. I mean, I didn't I had I had no plans, you know. But I was still dealing with cancer, so I was still not feeling great. I was still spending a lot of time horizontal in bed, but I could sit up with a laptop and I could write. So I wrote book two and I put the link on Facebook. I said, here it is, guys, here's book two. And it sold thousands. It became a bestseller as well. I was a top 100 selling author on Amazon for about 3 weeks. Like it was just insane, Kimberly. It was insane. So then I wrote a third book and then I started a new series. And by that point, I was in remission and I thought I should go look for another management job. Like I need to go get employed. But I just was looking at my bank balance and I was thinking, I don't think I have to go look for a job. I think a job found me. So then I just carried on and I've written 30 books over six, well, 31 books now, including the one on Monday, over six best-selling series. And it's my life. It's my life.
I
It's
am
what I do now.
proud of you. I am so proud of you. And that's
Oh,
the
thank
first
you.
we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So when you when you caught the breast cancer and you ended up writing a second book, right? That's how I
Yeah.
went down. You tell me about that book. That the first book. Let me reflect on what you just said. The first
Okay.
book with the cowgirl, right? The cowgirl who
The
goes to
sexy cowboy.
yeah, yes, the woman in Denver, Colorado that goes to
No,
basically
she's in New York City and she goes to Denver, Colorado.
okay. I
Yeah.
kind of messed up. My bad.
That's okay.
It's like she's from New York City. She goes all the way down to, John Denver City and state, and it's like she meet a cowboy. Tell me the climax of what's the climax of it? The good, the bad, the ugly. What was it that drew people? It had to be a section in that book that actually drew people that was like, yeah, this is something I can relate to.
I think it might just be miscommunication in the book because when she first shows up from New York City, all she wants to do is sell this place, get her money, and go back to her life in New York City. And
Oh,
and and everybody hates her. And so the sexy cowboy, Jake, wants out. He can't stand her. So he basically gives his notice, he quits, he wants out. But she doesn't know this. She has no idea that he's planning an escape. And so when they get together and they fall in love, um, she discovers by accident that he's leaving. And he's not leaving. It's just that she thinks he's leaving. She hears that he's quit. She hears that he's, and she's thinking, I thought he loved me. I thought that we were going to have a life here together. I've settled. I've decided to stay. I've given up everything I ever knew back in New York City to stay here, to be with him. And what he's out the door. And so I think that it's just a simple matter of miscommunication. And it happens a lot in relationships where you say something, they hear something different, and
yeah.
it can lead to a whole lot of problems.
When people
So,
sit up
yeah,
there talk like I'm talking now, and it was miscommunication a little bit between me and you. I didn't. You probably said it most likely 99.9%. Said she's from New York and she's coming all the way down to Denver.
yeah,
Like that's a miscommunication. But we got it. I said, okay, I'll accept it. I'll accept that I didn't hear that right, which makes, somebody has to take ownership and see
yes,
where the miscommunication went wrong.
yes,
And you wrote that book, and so many people looked and read it. It must be, it had to be, and it was a bestseller. And I see why.
yeah.
Because miscommunication is something that everyone can relate to. Everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. And unfortunately, it happens every day, several times a day. It happens in texts, it happens in emails, it happens over the phone, it happens by video chat, it happens with my son upstairs, you know? Um, and so, what you have to do is you have to have enough sense of self and respect for the other person to say, I'm not sure I understood this. Can we just like back up a minute and just let's try this again? Rather than automatically taking offense or going on the offensive or defensive, the best thing is to sort of say, okay, whoa, I mean, that's not what I understood. Can we just take a step back here? And everybody says, okay. And then you try again. And then you sort of go, oh God, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Now I get it. Now I hear you. But it takes some maturity and some self-awareness to be able to do that. And I think that's where a lot of relationships start to fall is people just sort of can't say, I'm going to own the fact that I missaid it. I'm going to own the fact that I misheard it. I'm going to own the fact that I wasn't listening. I was distracted, like whatever. I'm going to own it. And then apologize. Apologizing is so powerful if it's done with intention.
I want to we're at 21 minutes and 17 seconds, so I want to get to
Okay.
the second book, and then I want to go to the abusive relationship and how you
Okay.
found love. I
Well,
want to
I'm
know
working on it.
everything. Tell me about the second book and how that does it relate? Is it like a cameo of the first book with an intertwine, or is it something different about romance?
No, the first book was called Open Skies, and the setting was Open Skies Ranch. Totally
Yeah.
made up place. It doesn't exist. I made it up. Um, so then when people were saying, "Well, where's book two? I really want to buy it," and I'm thinking, I don't know. I didn't plan a book two. But I had introduced a whole cast of characters because of course nobody exists in a vacuum. So I had my main character and then I had the sexy cowboy and then I had another sexy cowboy who was a bit older and then I had people who worked in the office because the ranch and the hotel clearly has a marketing section, and there's a receptionist, there's this guy who works in the kitchen. So I had a whole staff and a whole set of characters. So I thought, okay, well, kind of who have I fleshed out a lot in the first book, like by accident, just by chance, and who do the readers kind of already know who they are and sort of what they stand for, what kind of person they are. I'll give them the book. So oh, where'd you go?
It's a bee.
Oh no, oh
I've been
no,
stung so many times by bees.
you're
Oh
not
my
a,
god,
you're
that's my weakness. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I thought maybe you were allergic, in which case I would say you better run. No, anyway, so I just picked a character who I thought had been really introduced in the first book just by chance, right? So
Good.
that's the person I gave the second book to, and my female heroine of the first book had a best friend. And I brought her to the ranch from New York City, and I gave her the relationship in the second book as well. And it was one of these cases where really opposites attract. Like this guy works in sales and marketing, he's a business guy, and she's this total nut bar who can't hold down a secretarial job in New York City. They couldn't be more different. And I put them together, and I'm like, well, let's see what happens. So that was an opposites attract story. And that's where the second one came from.
Wow. So it's basically a second version, but more extended, talking about a new character that's in the book.
Yeah. And
And
that's how all my series work. I
good.
introduce everybody in the first book. And then what happens is, as the series progresses, you still see the first relationship. It progresses over the 6 books or 8 books or 10 books. But I put the focus on a new relationship, and all the other relationships are kind of in the background, like moving pieces. So then when it's time for their book, I bring them to the front, and you already know them. You've already known them over 2 books, 3 books, 6 books. So all my
How many
series
books
are
are you gonna
very
make?
well, I've done 31 so far,
31
and
books?
31 books over 6 series. And the series I'm working on now will have 10 books, and I've published 4. The fourth book comes out on Monday, but there'll be 6 more books. I've already planned them all. I know exactly what I'm doing.
Do you think that, well, is there in the book, like your books, this is a dedication to me battling cancer and somebody that such and such I love and the children I love? Do you do that?
I do. And in fact, one of my best books, the one that sold the most, the female heroine had cancer, and I dedicated the book to my doctor who saved my life. So I do dedications, definitely. Yes.
I hate to go through this right now, but
Okay.
tell me about the abusive. This is for the women out there that is being
Hmm.
abused. Tell me about the gaslighting and everything that you've been through.
My husband and I decided to separate and divorce about 8 years ago, and it was very amicable. We are still the best of friends,
Good.
no problems there at all. So he met a wonderful woman in Poland. This is when I lived in Poland.
Mhm.
And I was traveling to and from England because one of my series got recorded to audiobook, and the studio was in London. So I was traveling between Warsaw and London. And while I was in London, I met this man. And he and I sort of kept it long distance for about a year and a half. And then I decided to move to England to be with him. Um, and the first couple of years were actually really great. But what I realize now is he's a narcissist, and I was in the love bombing stage of the relationship where everything is so passionate and everything moves so quickly. And um, they ask you a million questions because they want to find out how best to tell you what you want to hear. None of it's sincere. And then when they kind of get you where they want you, like once he had me here in England and we were living together, he could drop the act. And that's when the narcissist mask starts to slip. Suddenly you see these flashes of temper, you see a different person altogether, and it's so confusing because this person from the beginning was so perfect. Of course they were doing everything they could to like suck you in. And
And it's
then
stress
he
on you that can cause, the remission to come back. It's stress, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, of course. Yeah. So I didn't know what to do because I was so confused. So you start to try to figure out what you're doing wrong that's making them change. And anyway, it ended up just being a horrible relationship. It was abusive on every level, including physical, because by that point, they've got you where they want you, they beat you down. Um, I stopped writing because I just couldn't. I didn't have the mental capacity. I
Yeah.
didn't have the emotional strength. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
All my energy went towards thinking, how do I not make him mad today? Like what,
Yeah.
right? And so I stopped writing. And then of course I had no financial independence because I was working for his company, but I was working, it's not like I was getting a paycheck for working for his company. So I was completely trapped. And I guess it was about a year ago, a year and a half ago. One day, I don't know what happened, but I just looked up at him and he was having one of his temper tantrums and he was throwing things and he was blaming me for everything. And I knew I had done nothing. I knew I had done nothing. It was just him. And I was just so tired of everything being twisted around to be my fault. I was tired of always having to be on the defensive, having to explain something that I didn't do, yet feeling like somehow I had done it. Anyway, nightmare. So this one day I just looked at him, and honestly, Kimberly, I just something happened in my head, and I just thought, this is my life. Like this is it. This is just the way it's always going to be unless I get out of here. And that was when I decided to leave. So I started writing secretly, and not books, but like writing assignments. I did a little bit of ghost writing, like nothing where he could find me. You know, if my name was out there, he would know I had published a book. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
ghost wrote two books. I took writing assignments online, like writing ad copy for a
Yeah.
Christmas
Yeah.
campaign.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just had all the money put into a PayPal account. you know? Um, yeah, because he would check my bank balance to see what I was doing. Like it was really like, and when I saved up enough money, which was it's a year ago, it's a year ago last month, a year ago July, I just packed everything up, left, and I've been free and happy and safe for the past year. And I'm just now, after therapy and a lot of work on myself, just now, after a year, I am dating, and I've actually met a really great guy. So fingers crossed, fingers crossed that goes well. But I'm just at the beginning because it was it was a year of really healing and getting myself back because I lost myself in that relationship completely.
I commend you. Oh my
Oh,
God.
thank
I
you.
commend you that you saved up your money and you left. And I hope nothing but good things between you and your new relationship. But we
Thank
kind of
you.
running out of time. So tell me, I'll condense this video once I edit it, but tell me how do like where are you going in the future?
Writing more books. Writing more books. Like I said, my newest book will be published on Monday, and I am already. What I've been doing this afternoon is I've been sitting here planning the next book in the series. So I'm already working on the next book, and that's what I plan to do. I plan to really reclaim my writing, really rediscover the passion of it and the fun and the freedom and build up my bank account again with sales, hopefully, and then I can buy a cute little flat, or I can do a little bit of traveling, or whatever. I just have a little bit of financial freedom and independence again, which would make me feel like I had some choices again, more choices than I do now. So that's my plan, Kimberly.
Okay, and I look forward to seeing, I'm gonna try my best. If you do you have like the little e copies of the book?
Yeah, my books are on Amazon exclusively. So if your listeners or your viewers have Kindle Unlimited, they can get my books on Kindle Unlimited as part of their package. Um, so all of my books are ebooks, and right now I am preparing all my books for print. So, but right now everything is an ebook. Some of them are print. I'm switching it over to both, and one series is audiobooks if your readers like audiobooks.
How many pages is it? Because I'm like, I'm very busy, so I want to make sure. Is it
Uh,
between 300 below?
it's depends on the book. Some of them are shorter, like the Open Skies series and the other series, Fighting for Love. Those are shorter books. Um, my longer books are kind of between 200 and 350 pages. So yeah, they're all different lengths, but they're not. None of them are 800 pages or anything. They're not like it's not like War and Peace. I'm not Dostoevsky. I keep them pretty short, but they're not hard reads. And just so you're warned, they're pretty steamy. Like the love scenes get pretty racy. Let's put it that way. Just so you know.
Great imagination. Okay, and lastly, how can the people reach you?
The best place is always my website, which is marysoljames.com. On there, you can sign up for my newsletter. You can find all my social media. All of my books are there, divided into my series. So just click on the series you're interested in. All my sexy book covers will come up. And if you click on it, it will take you directly to the Amazon store for that link. It's just my email's on there. So it's the best place to find me. Definitely my website.
I want to thank you so much for joining my show. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone, for joining my show. Stay on the line. Don't leave yet. I
Okay.
just wanted to say, you guys, you rock. Thank you for sticking with me. I'll see you guys in a bit. Take care, be safe, and bye.
Bye, everybody.